Elias Masry, a pioneer in the theory and application of stochastic processes and Professor Emeritus at the University of California, San Diego, passed away on March 17, 2020 in La Jolla, California. He was 83. Professor Masry was born January 7, 1937, and grew up in Israel. He received Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degrees in electrical engineering from the Technion Israel Institute of Technology in 1963 and 1965 respectively, and an MS in electrical engineering from Princeton in 1966. He earned his PhD in electrical engineering in 1968 from Princeton University, and he joined the UC San Diego faculty that same year. He was a member of the Communications Theory and Systems Group in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department at the UC San Diego Jacobs School of Engineering, and remained on the faculty until his retirement in 2009. Professor Masry's distinguished research career spanned 4 decades, and his work covered a wide range of topics in communication systems, signal processing, and mathematical statistics. He was a meticulous researcher whose work was rigorous and precise. The first 2 decades of Professor Masry's research made seminal contributions to the fundamental aspects of stochastic processes and involved questions of representations, modeling, and estimation. His work made extensive contributions in the areas of covariance, spectral, and probability density estimation, inverse problems in nonlinear systems, optimal sampling designs, Monte Carlo integration, deconvolution methods in probability density, and regression functions estimation, to mention a few. In addition to developing novel methods for estimation, his work always involved a rigorous analysis characterizing the quality of the estimation method, usually as a function of the number of samples. In the last 2 decades of his research work, he continued to make contributions to the theory of representing and processing of stochastic processes. A sampling of his contributions include local polynomial regression fitting for short-range and long-range dependent data, wavelet representation of stochastic processes and applications to function estimation, estimation and identification of stationary nonlinear ARCH and ARX systems, and sampling theorems for stochastic processes. In addition to the theoretical work, his work addressed important problems in digital communications and signal processing, which clearly benefited from his expertise in stochastic processes. This included interference rejection in spread spectrum communication systems, analysis of adaptive filtering algorithms, and the design and analysis of multi-antenna wireless communication systems. Professor Masry was elected a Fellow of IEEE in 1986 for his contributions to the theory of stochastic processes and time series analysis in sampled data systems and digital communication systems. He served as Associate Editor for Stochastic Processes for the IEEE Transactions on Information Theory 1980 through 83, and was the Publications Chairman of the 1990 International Symposium on Information Theory in San Diego. He was honored by his students in electrical and computer engineering with the Graduate Teaching Award in 2000 and the Undergraduate Teaching Award in 2001. He will be deeply missed by his family, his colleagues and friends, and the UC San Diego community. He is survived by his sister Rachel Shasha and her 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren, and by his brother, Sammy Metzer, and his wife, 2 sons and 2 grandchildren.
Hi, I'm Patrick Hood and was Professor Masry's graduate student from about 2001 to 2006. I have only fond memories of Professor Masry. Every interaction was filled with kindness and patience. Back then, I was a very inexperienced graduate student when he took interest in our work on multi-code, direct sequence, spread spectrum with conventional Rick receiver, and we arrived at the asymptotic distribution of the multi-antenna interference with sufficiently large processing gain. That was a long time ago, so I'm reading that. It was my first result as a graduate student, thanks to him, and of course Professor Milstein and Professor Prakas, which we collaborated with, who are my professors as well. and we published in IEEE Transactions and Information Theory after 4 years. I absolutely would not have completed that work if it wasn't for his technical guidance and patience over many years. 2 more quick memories. I have fond memories of his time series class, his meticulous Blackboard notes and on random sampling, and it was refreshingly theoretical without a care for the commercial systems that were around and deployed at the time, but of course with fundamental applicability. And finally, I always remember that he wasn't afraid of asking for help on his computer I think it was for email. I don't even recall what it was, but it speaks to his approachability and sense of sort of teamwork. He was so friendly and helpful and kind and generous of his time. I'm grateful and deeply honored to have been under his tutelage, and I'll miss him dearly. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to Professor Masry's Memorial Symposium. I want to first express my condolences to his family, friends, and colleagues and students. I had an opportunity to take Professor Masry's classes when I started graduate school in 1991, sat in his queuing theory class, and took both ECE 254A and B, which is at that time was called time series analysis. I thought I would never use that material after graduating. However, during my career, I find myself returning to his class notes and references for most of my projects over the past 25 years. He made learning easier. He was always humble, and I found him very approachable. I believe all of the students at that time could say that he was a master of the chalkboard. And that was like chalk, real chalk on a blackboard. And so at the end of the class, in my opinion, it was a piece of art. I always treasure this. This is like 300 pages, but it's filled with some of his comments, do's and don'ts, lessons learned, theorems, corollaries, etc. A Greek historian, Thucydides, once said, "What you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone, but what's woven into the lives of others." His teaching and mentoring has helped me through my career, and I will never forget him. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Francesco Bullo. I'm a faculty at UC Santa Barbara, Mechanical Engineering. I never was formally enrolled in in any degree program at UC San Diego, nor did I ever get a degree, nor was I formally, officially ever associated with Dr. Masry. I was just a lonely, simple visiting education abroad program student in 92, 93. And I had a chance to take a course, his graduate course, ECE 256A, Time Series Analysis and Applications, in winter 93. And since then, and then after that, for a few more months, I had a chance to do some research with him and publish with him. So Dr. Masry, for me, was an absolutely spectacular teacher. I met him because everybody recommended his course to me. I fearfully and respectfully went to ask him if I could take his course. And he, I remember he gave me some tough love, and he said something like, "I don't think you can do it. You're an undergraduate student. Show me if you can do it." And that was truly an exceptional motivation for me at the time. He then went on to teach a memorable class on time series analysis and signal processing with great examples, illuminating proofs, just raw mastery of the topic. Dr. Masry was also a marvelous researcher. He was thoughtful, he was deep, he was meticulous, organized, he was relentless in his approach. I remember after my course in that winter 93, I asked him for a research program. And he found a perfect match for me, a well-posed, a bit narrow, but valuable problem that I was able to make some progress on with his help, and that actually ultimately led to publications. And so, in effect, for me, Dr. Masry was a truly perfect, highly effective mentor in just a few months. He was the first person to teach me a challenging, top, exciting, breathtaking course. He was, even before that, he was the first person, as I mentioned, to challenge me and tell me, look me in the eye and say, I don't think you can do it, show me. He was the first to give me an open research problem. He was the first to teach me how to get past the research hurdle. He was my first conference paper co-author, my first journal paper co-author, and he was also the first person who told me, I think you have a future in academia. So Dr. Masry was fantastic for me. Here are some final anecdotes. One day we had a careful discussion about mathematical software to format documents, so LaTeX versus TROF. And for those of you who know about mathematical formatting, this is a forever debate at the time, and I want you all to know that he had determined that LaTeX had too many curly brackets. And I'm still curious to know if he ever did switch from one software to the other. Here's a second anecdote. After my departure from San Diego, by serendipity, by very lucky serendipities, he visited me in the city of Padua, in my hometown, for an ISIC symposium. And we were walking around town when he took a picture of the historic clock tower in the main square of town. And then we kept walking and visiting other buildings, other areas. But then a little while later, he stopped back in front of the clock tower and he took another picture. And I was puzzled by that. And he looked me in the eyes and he said, well, now nobody can deny it. I am interested in time series. Anyway, I saw him one final time during a visit visit of mine to UC San Diego by chance, and I saw him interacting with the junior faculty, and he was definitely in full force, and he was definitely a fantastic colleague. In short, Dr. Elias Masry allowed me to understand what my professional path was going to be. He allowed me to understand what my aspiration and dreams were, and more importantly, he enabled them with his mentorship of me. And for that, I will forever be grateful. Thank you so much, Dr. Masry.
I met Professor Masry when I first came to UCSD as a postdoc in 1983. We felt a connection and developed friendship right away. We came from different parts of the world, but we had a similar family history of persecution, his family in Iraq and mine in former Soviet Union. We also both were technical graduates. At first, Elias struck me as a person of great integrity and fairness. With time, our friendship has grown to many years of loyal family friendship. He was a person of huge intellect, vast knowledge, an outstanding scientist, but also a good person. My children, being teenagers and then young adults, never missed our dinners with Elias. They loved him and loved to discuss different issues with him. In short, Elias was extremely honest, direct, and dedicated to better UCSD and UCSD School of Engineering. His professional ethics is an example that I follow. On the personal level, Professor Masry was a great friend. Our family will always remember him. In one word, Professor Masry was a brilliant.
Hello, colleagues and friends. It's my great honor to say a few words to celebrate the life of our dear colleague, Professor Elias Masry. I recall several things that I would like to share with you. As you know, Professor Elias Masry is among the founders of the department. He's been here for multiple decades. When I joined the department back in 1983, I was introduced to Elias as he was the chair of the Space Committee at ECE, and he attentively listened to my requests, details about the lab, and little I know later on that he's a physician Still, he worked really hard to find a space that met my need at the old building, applied physics and mathematics, for a couple of years before we moved to our current building of EBU 1. So he attended to details such as film hoods, lab bench, and so on, and find the space that are suitable for my purpose. Fast forward, when I served as department chair in early 2000, Elias was chair of the ECCAP, and we interact a lot to discuss files. And I would say that he was a very meticulously careful person, and also a very compassionate colleague when we look the file together. There are also fun moments. Again, in the early 2000s, we have number of building evacuations due to either sewage breakage or fires in the neighborhoods. I got a complaint from the fire marshal that one of our faculty refused to leave the office. And guess what? That was Elias. So I jokingly asked him, what happened? And he just said that he would not understand why the fire marshal would not allow him to finish his calculations. I really miss Elias. Many times we walked together from the parking lot to the office, and he carried a simple briefcase with him and walking in a careless manner. And I still remember to this day. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Paroikis. My professional relationship with Elias Masry has spanned a period of about 40 years. Initially, we would meet at conferences and we would be focused on really discussing technical issues of various kinds. It turns out that Elias and I have very similar interest in teaching and research. And these include spectral estimation problems, adaptive signal processing algorithms, time series analysis, as well as the performance analysis of digital communication systems. Prior to my joining the faculty at UCSD, my communications and relationship with Elias were based solely on technical issues. And on several instances, I would communicate with him via telephone or email regarding some statistical properties of adaptive filtering algorithms that I was working on. These were applied to digital communication systems, and examples of these are various types of adaptive channel estimation or adaptive channel equalization problems. When I joined the faculty at UCSD, that was in 1999, my relationship with Elias became much, much closer. My first PhD student at UCSD was Patrick Amihud. And at that time, I asked Professor Masry to be on Patrick's doctoral committee. This initial collaboration resulted in 2 journal articles and 2 conference presentations at Asilomar and Milcom. And both conference and journal papers, Professor Masry was a co-author in these publications. Now, Patrick's PhD thesis was focused on the performance of MIMO systems in frequency selective fading channels. And let me comment on the key role that Professor Masry played in Patrick's research. The first journal paper that was published in the IEEE Transactions on Information Theory, that was in December of 2007, This paper dealt with the performance evaluation of multi-code direct sequence spread spectrum systems with conventional rake receivers for various channel users. These receivers were operating then in a frequency selective fading MIMO channel. The major hurdle was the statistical characterization of the antenna interference. With Professor Masry's assistance, Patrick was able to prove that the multiple antenna interference was asymptotically normal. And as well as he was able to derive the asymptotic mean and the variance of the interference. Now, the proof of this asymptotic normality was far from trivial. It consisted basically of proving three separate theorems, and these proofs ultimately resulted in the performance evaluation of the rake receiver, and as well as ultimately getting the paper accepted for publication in the Information Theory Transactions. The second paper was jointly authored as well with Elias, was published in the IEEE Transactions on Communication Theory. And this paper was focused on performance evaluation of decentralized receivers in a multiple input, single output, frequency selective fading, broadcast type channels. In a broadcast scenario, pre-coding is typically employed at the transmitter to reduce the interference at each of the receivers. Again, the major problem is the evaluation of the receiver performance in the presence of frequency selective fading. As in the previous paper, Professor Masry provided guidance to Patrick in basically evaluating this system performance in the presence of interference. These were just examples of what that to sort of demonstrate my collaboration with Professor Masry. And in my 20 years as a faculty member at UCSD, there were many other instances where we collaborated closely on technical issues. Now, I should mention that in addition to the technical collaborations, there was also a number of there was also a social component, let me put it this way. When my wife and I arrived to San Diego in 1999, Elias and his wife hosted us at their home. And after that, there were many, many social get-togethers, including dinners out at local restaurants and the like. So in closing, I would say that Elias was a great faculty colleague. He was a close friend, and I have truly missed his company since he passed on. And further, I missed the discussions that we've had on challenging technical problems.
So, hi, this is Larry Larson. I was chair of ECE from 2007 to 2011, and I was at UCSD from 1996 until 2011. So I got to know Professor Masry very, very well during that time, and he was just the most wonderful colleague and friend. And I worked especially closely with Elias while I was chair of ECE from 2007 to 2011. And Elias was chair of the ECE CAP committee at that time, which was the very important committee in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering around promotions and tenure and appointments. And Elias was just a delightful colleague to work with. First of all, he was a true gentleman, and he had beautiful manners, a very shy smile and a wonderful dry sense of humor. So I always really loved speaking with him. He was one of the, I believe, founders of the department in the early days. And so his historical perspective was always really unique. And I loved, talking to him a little bit about the history of the department. And, the thing that always impressed me most about Professor Masry was just his incredible intellectual integrity. And this was combined with a real capacity for hard work, and he had just enormous patience. And so he was a perfect person to chair the ECE CAP committee, because when you're evaluating academic dossiers, you have to really sweat the details and understand the particulars of the case in a very, very detailed way. And there was no one better than Elias in going through a file with a fine-tooth comb and finding all of the pluses and minuses and really doing a deep, deep analysis. So I consider the incredible success that we've had in ECE over the years in terms of hiring great faculty, promoting great faculty, and moving the department forward. I consider that success, very, very much due to Elias's hard work and attention to detail and real intellectual integrity. He was a fantastic person to work with. I learned a lot from him, and I'm really sorry he's gone. I know he'll be very missed by everyone in the community. Thank you.
I was saddened to hear about Professor Elias Masry's death last year. I'm glad that we are doing a memorial symposium for him. I joined the department in 1988, and Elias was already a respected senior member of the department. He was a low-key person, but at department faculty meetings, when we discussed faculty members' file, he was a presence. As a member of the Committee of Academic Personnel, often as a chair of the ECE CAP, he would recite from his long, detailed notes on his notepad in an even voice. He was presenting facts, fair and non-judgmental. I found two pictures during that period, one on March 16, 1998, and the other one on April 16, 1999. I forgot the occasions, but they were at La Jolla Shores Hotel. They were Shia Feynman, who is still active in the department, and 3 department administrative staff, Butch Shub, who is no longer with us, Paige Muret, who moved to the Bay Area after her husband's company was acquired by Google, and Sylvia Flores, who retired to Mexico. It's interesting that we would be at the same table 1 year apart, but it shows that Elias got along with the staff. From 1999 to 2003, I was the department chair. Because Elias was widely respected, as I mentioned, I asked him to be the chair of the ECE CAP. As the department chair, I had to write a letter to the dean for each faculty member who was being promoted, and Elias' report was invaluable to me as a starting point. Elias was also an excellent teacher. The ratings of his course and professor evaluations, or CAPE, were always very high. Students liked him for his clear and thorough lectures, as we should know from his CAP notes. He was honored with a Graduate Teaching Award in 2000 and the Undergraduate Teacher of the Year Award in 2001, and I was happy to have the opportunities to present to him the awards. It's clear that the faculty members, the staff, and the students thought very highly of Elias, and he in turn felt at home in the department. Ramesh Rao told me that he left a substantial amount of his estate to the department. That's wonderful and touching. We are all grateful for being a part of his life, and we shall miss him dearly.
In recalling Elias, it was something of a shock to realize that I had known him for more than 50 years. I met Elias when he came to UCSD in 1968 while I was still a graduate student. I joined the faculty in '69 and got to know him better. Elias's work on statistical theory has been characterized as meticulous, rigorous, and precise. My work on the analysis of very remote sensing observations is almost the opposite. I'm happy to find a physical model that's at least consistent with the observations, and there's no hope of determining anything with either rigor or precision. So we approached life and the department with very different worldviews. This wasn't the obstacle to discussion that one might imagine, but it did make discussions always interesting and wide-ranging. When I was a department chairman, I frequently consulted Elias, because if I could get Elias to agree, then the rest of the department was no problem. I'll miss him.